President Trump risks a Joe Biden-like mistake tomorrow. And that's our Why It Matters memo tonight. Let's look at this event for what it is. Trump is trying to rebrand tariffs as Make America Wealthy Again. It's a catchy slogan, and if it works, he will be thoroughly vindicated. Bill O'Reilly was skeptical last night. There's more reasons to be skeptical tonight. However you brand something doesn't change the fact that tariffs are a tax paid for by all of us. Joe Biden tried to rebrand the Green New Deal the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, it was still the same thing. It was a massive spending bill. The law added rocket fuel to post-pandemic inflation. The Biden presidency never recovered. When it comes to tariffs, President Trump faces two choices tomorrow. He can implement punishing tariffs. They're going to dramatically raise consumer prices, and it would give him more power to negotiate trade deals. He can also announce light tariffs that keep prices low here at home, give him more time to negotiate, but make him appear weak, like he gave in to the current fear factor. And there's a lot of fear out there, whether it's justified or not, we'll get into. There's more fear on Wall Street than anywhere else because Donald Trump is unpredictable. Team Trump argues they're going to bring in $6 trillion in revenue from tariffs over the next decade. Where exactly do they think all that money is coming from? A lot of it will come from our pockets. And even the numbers are optimistic. Rupert Murdoch's newspapers expressed doubt. The Wall Street Journal and New York Post wrote about it. A $6 trillion tax increase headlines the Wall Street Journal. Trump's bizarro world tariffs will turn the economy upside down, says the New York Post. Economic historian Phil Mangness took a step further. For economists, the tariff spectacle currently coming out of the White House economic team is akin to watching NASA being taken over by astrologers and repurposing the International Space Station to charge magic healing crystals with moonbeams. Probably put him down as skeptical as well. Trump argues, and he's got a point here because he might be able to pull this off, that he's using tariffs as a negotiating tactic to bring American manufacturing jobs back to America. In the face of widespread criticism, the administration today remained defiant.
Too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair. The lack of reciprocity contributes to our large and persistent annual trade deficit that's gutted our industries and hollowed out key workforces.
Here's a simple way to think about it. Plenty of Americans use delivery apps like DoorDash, or you eat out at restaurants. If the cost of ordering fast food keeps going up, you're incentivized to stop ordering food and save money by cooking at home. That's what Trump wants to do. So manufacturing is going to come back to America, according to Donald Trump, because tariffs will increase the cost of buying imported goods, of ordering from DoorDash. He wants more companies to make cars, TVs, and washing machines here at home. Those TVs, washing machines, and cars will cost more to buy. Just the way it is. We begin tonight with Cenk Uygur, founder and host of the Young Turks, and Steve Cortes, senior campaign advisor to President Trump's 2020 campaign. Gentlemen, good to see both of you. Interestingly enough, as I've researched your positions on this, I see that you both sort of agree with this or like this for different reasons. But Steve, I'm going to start with you. Price increases, inflation, killed Joe Biden's presidency. And more importantly, as soon as it started, he lost all of his political capital and power.
Right.
These tariffs are going to bring price increases, unquestionably. Why does that same rule not apply to Donald Trump?
Well, Leland, I don't accept your premise that it's unquestionable because American production can be efficient enough and productivity can rise enough here in the United States that longer-term prices do not need to rise. Look, the reality is...
Hold on one second. You just said longer term. We can all agree that in the short term, prices are going to rise. We just can look back to the last time we went through this with President Trump. Raised tariffs on washing machines. Washing machines and dryers went up 15, 17%. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way we can argue that it's worth it, but let's not fool ourselves.
Well, listen, it is likely in the near term that they will rise, but it's by no means certain. But what is certain is that in this country, working class citizens have been disenfranchised and abused for decades. And primarily, it's by two factors. Number one, constant offshoring of production overseas. Number two, totally unsustainable debt. Well, tariffs at the same time solve both of those problems by compelling manufacturing and production to come back to this country, onshoring, and by providing badly needed funds to address the deficit. So for me, this is the ultimate pro-working class reform agenda that is so badly needed. And it's the reason, by the way, why populism is so ascendant both on the left and the right in this country, is because middle class people know that their standard of living has been declining ever since globalism became the primary agenda of Washington, D.C.
All right, Cenk, I promised Cuomo a few minutes ago that you guys were going to agree, so don't make a liar out of me. But my question to you on this is, when prices rise in the short term, the people it hurts the most are the working class, who you continue, Cenk, and I think very rightly, to champion and say Democrats need to reach out to. So is that sort of the coming fight for Democrats, is to be against Donald Trump's tariffs?
Yeah, so let's be nuanced here, because it needs it. So if you say tariffs don't work at all, that's not right, right? There are places where tariffs make some sense. And there's two different things that you can accomplish with tariffs. One is a negotiating tactic, as you mentioned, and Trump actually does use that fairly well from time to time. He threatened it with Canada and Mexico. We got some small but important concessions on stopping fentanyl, stopping the flow of immigration, illegal immigration from Mexico, et cetera. So if you want to use it that way, that makes sense. And the reason why you've seen me be positive about tariffs sometimes is because reciprocal tariffs as a negotiating tactic also makes sense. So if China's going to put 12% on tariff on us, we put a 12% tariff on them, whether it's washing machines, cars, or otherwise, right? The other reason that you do it is to build up your manufacturing base over a long period of time. So, but when I look at what Trump is doing right now, I don't think it's going to work. So I don't think that the Democrats should be against tariffs in general, because they can be executed right, but they should be against these tariffs. So this idea that the prices are not going to go up is magical thinking. Of course they're going to go up, because first of all, there's no such thing as an American car company. The car companies that we call American, GM, Ford, et cetera, they only make parts of their cars here, and they bring in parts from all across the world. So even the American car prices are going to rise. And then obviously Japanese cars, South Korean cars, et cetera, they will all rise in prices significantly. So there's no way to avoid that. And so if you're using it as a temporary negotiating tactic, fine. Okay, but it looks like now he's actually moving to try to create a manufacturing base here. But that would take years. And there's no way that Donald Trump is going to have the fortitude and the consistency to be able to execute that, and to be able to withstand the economic pain for 2-3 years of his presidency to build that manufacturing base.
2 or 3 years of economic pain, a presidency is over. Because once you lose the economy, you lose all of your political strength and political capital. Steve, there's something deeper here, and I think Cenk makes a good point, as did Cuomo's guest earlier, that we keep hearing different things from the White House. At one point, these tariffs are only going to be a negotiating tactic in order to get better deals. Then they're only going to be around for a very short period of time, for more negotiation while there's onshoring and while there's all this investment, and some of those companies might get big breaks on the tariffs. So if you agree to build a car company here a car plant here before it's built, there's no tariffs. Then all of a sudden we hear from Peter Navarro that no, these tariffs are going to be around forever, and we're going to bring in $6 trillion. Do they have a plan?
So, Leland, you bring up a really important point here, because I do believe in protectionism. Okay, that is not a bad word, but also another P word, which is predictability. Financial markets, executives, the American public need predictability. So I believe, for example, that tariffs are not just a negotiating ploy. No, tariffs should be permanent. And there's reporting out today from the Washington Post, we'll see if it's accurate, that the White House is now talking about a 20% across the board tariff. That makes enormous sense. Rather than the tit for tat, or we're going to reciprocate with every single country, just say no. Access to America, which is the premium consumer market in the world, it is the gold standard, and every company in the world wants to sell into America. Access to the best seats in the House is going to cost you a premium, and put that premium at 20%. Absolutely across the board, predictable, stable, and compels onshoring back into this country. That would be the very best scenario, and leave it on permanently. Predictable and permanent.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen. So look, here's what's going to happen instead. And I'll do another fun P word for you guys. Prediction. So here's an official Cenk Uygur prediction for you. They will try to keep these tariffs on through the $4.5 trillion tax cut. Because one thing they want to be able to say is, oh, no, it's okay. The tariffs are going to magically pay for that tax cut. And so is the gold card. And so is all these different card tricks that we have. No, that's going to blow a giant hole in deficit. But the donors want it. The wealthy want it. Corporations want it. And unfortunately, Donald Trump is a fake populist. So he's going to give the corporations and the donors what they want.
Wait,
if it makes it all the way to the tax cut, it'll definitely be ended right after the tax cut. But I don't know that it's even going to make it.
So we got Cenk's prediction.
Upheaval.
Steve, you get the last 30 seconds, then we got to run.
Cenk, I don't think you can find a single CEO of a giant multinational conglomerate in America who wants tariffs. It is the exact opposite, right? They are kicking and screaming about what Trump is doing because he believes in patriotic populism, not globalism. And for you to sit here and presuppose that somehow this is doing the bidding of the donor class, it is the exact opposite. This is for working class people and their
I don't want to get in the
prosperity.
middle of this UFC fight, as Cuomo promised it would be. But I will say every member of the donor class that I have talked to over the past couple of weeks is fighting mad, and that may be putting it too lightly over this. Steve, Cenk, great conversation, gents. Always good to have you in the house. Thank you. We'll see what happens tomorrow, 4 p.m., and then you guys' predictions will be put to the mark the tape test next time you are on.
Joining me now, Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former chief of staff in the first administration, former budget director as well, NewsNation contributor. Hello, sir.
Hello, Berman.
Welcome back from your world travels.
Oh, it's always good to be here.
You were the
Did anything happen while I was gone?
You were the chief of staff in the first trade war.
Yeah.
Tell me why Donald Trump is going down this path right now.
What you're going to see tomorrow, this is different. The stuff we've heard up to now is about changing policy, getting the Mexicans to change their policy on immigration, drugs, Canadians, the thing in Colombia, et cetera. This is different. This broad package is more about his larger plan to try and rebuild the American middle class, to rebuild American manufacturing. That's what this is about. They're counting on these tariffs to encourage people to start making things here. Now, it's a risky strategy because, as Don Bacon points out, it doesn't always work.
Why does he believe that this is the way to do it?
Because it is a traditional way. It's not unusual. He's not the first person to think this. Keep in mind, Donald Trump grew up in the 1970s and 80s when America was making steel and making ships and making textiles and furniture and stuff. And he wants to sort of get back to that. He knew there was a healthy middle class then. It's been gutted. Look, I live in the Southeast. Not anybody works in textiles anymore. Right. So he's got that perspective of how do we get back to rebuilding the middle class? Again, on paper, it looks fine. It could be really, really difficult to do. It might actually backfire.
And as the former chief of staff, what would you be advising him on that front?
If there's nobody in that room telling him, Mr. President, that's fine. We'll back you if this is what you want to do, but just be aware these are the risks. 1, 2, 3. The stock markets can tank. We could go into recession. You could end up in a trade war that's devastating the American economy. If they haven't had that discussion yet, then it needs to start firing people, because if everybody's telling him this is going to be easy, he's getting really bad advice.
Great question by Kelly there in the briefing room today, which is, you know, if you're saying that the foreign companies and the countries are the ones who eat the cost, then why'd you need to warn the domestic automakers not to raise prices? And you hit on this as well in your article in The Hill that just dropped. The White House's mixed messages on its tariff policy is what you write. Here's what you say. You say Trump has strong political, philosophical, economic, and even cultural reasons for taking a hard line on tariffs. He doesn't need people coming out to defend him by using fuzzy math that every college freshman in Econ 101 can spot as political rather than economic. What do you mean here?
This is in response to Peter Navarro's comment about how these tariffs are going to raise $600 billion a year, $6 trillion over 10 years. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
You can't have money from tariffs and have people set up business here. You're going to have one or the other. You could have a mix of the two, but you can't have them both. And that's what the White House, through people like Peter Navarro, is trying to tell people. That's over-promising and under-delivering. What the hell's your name? I keep forgetting.
Blake. You were in Australia 36 hours ago.
I'm in a different day. But you can't have it both ways, okay? And if you overpromise and underdeliver, that's when people start making you pay a price at the polls.
Here's the tariffs, sort of what's happening right now and what could come in the future. Trump, as we know, has already taken actions. Mick, you can see on the screen there what's already been enacted, 25% tariffs on several goods. what may or may not come tomorrow, and then what could happen down the road as well. At the end of the day, and again, you were Trump's former budget director, what do you think the end result here is for the American consumer?
I think I know what comes first. I know for sure what happens is prices are going to go up.
For sure.
No
matter what.
Prices are going up.
Okay.
It just is. The question is, over the course of time, will the markets adjust to where prices start to come down? Will the other Trump initiatives like deregulation, tax policy, kick in to sort of do what we did in the first term, which is have some tariffs, not anything like the tariffs he's talking about tomorrow. We had tariffs, we had some tariffs, we had great unemployment numbers, but we had no inflation. You try to get back to that. You might get back to that, but I think the one thing you know for sure is that prices are going to go up in the short term.
You did that on No Sleep. You want to stick around for the rest of the show?
I'm going to take a nap between now and the next block.
You and Cory Booker might need it. All right. Thank you, sir. Catch you later in the show. Appreciate it. Mick Mulvaney.
Why are tomorrow's tariffs taking effect and being called Liberation Day? Is this a misnomer, like when I call a fat buddy slim? Or is the president okay with these moves liberating more cash from our pockets because of higher prices? Joining me now is Justin Wolfers, professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan. Professor, I want to give you a few minutes for what you're looking for tomorrow and what the implications could be.
Well, the big question is what it is that Trump has actually decided to do. Look, it was only 2 days ago that we had Trump's chief economic advisor out there actually on Fox News admitting not even he knew what was going to happen. So it's a funny tell here, but the first thing I'm going to look for is spelling mistakes because that'll tell you something about the policy process. That'll tell you that the ink hadn't dried, even as we speak right now, and probably some poor assistant in the White House is taking dictation as the president finally decides what it is that he's going to do. But I think the really important thing is I think there's two things. One, they're going to dress it up in the rhetoric of reciprocal tariffs. The other guys are getting us, they're doing us wrong. It's time for us to fight back. The problem with this idea is it's total nonsense. Most countries around the world have very, very low tariffs. And if, as has been threatened, it ends up something like a 20% across the board tariff, that has nothing to do with how we're being treated by others. That's the first salvo in a trade war, and it's one being started by the United States. And the other thing I just want your viewers to really understand is this is another way of thinking about this is a tax hike. It's a tax hike on them. It's the biggest tax hike in the United States since 1993. And more to the point, it's the most regressive. That is to say, targets the poor and the middle class rather than the rich of any tax hike in living memory.
So it's about what the quotas are and what the duration is, and the balance of politics here is that this is a tactic for Trump to get a better deal. How do you balance those?
Oh, look, the White House changes what it says the White House means by doing tariffs every single day. This is a tool that apparently is going to rid the country of fentanyl, rebuild our manufacturing base, change the trade deficit and raise revenue, or being a bargaining tactic against the rest of the world. Look, if it's a bargaining tactic, it's not going to be 20% across the world. If it's a bargaining tactic, you sit down with someone across the table, you show your cards, what it is you have to offer, and you try and figure something out. That's not what this is. This is, it's wonderful television, it's terrific showmanship, and absolutely terrible economics.
Well, Professor, I know you're in high demand. Let's see what they put out, and then I'll get in the queue of people who want you to come back to explain it to us. But thank you for being with me. Justin Wolfers will speak again.
Should be fun.
We'll be right back.